that we experienced. That's correct. In terms of the terms of reference, on paragraph 4.1.7, this ad hoc committee, inter alia, is expected to investigate the alleged corrupt relationship between Minister Mkhunu and Mr. Brown Mokgotsi, and between Mokgotsi and Mr. Vusumuzi Ket Nhlanhla. During our deliberations in one of our meetings when we were developing these terms of reference as this committee, we unanimously agreed that you must be the main witness of this committee. And the reason for that is that we are trying to be in compliance with the legal principle that says who he alleges must prove. Had it not been for the press briefing that you made on the 6th of July, this committee would not be here today. In the statement that you made during the press briefing, the impression that we had, which resulted to us agreeing on this term of reference, is that there is a corrupt relationship amongst the individuals that I've mentioned. Now, a member of the DA has asked here that in your view, do you think Minister Mkhunu is corrupt or is involved in corruption? And your response was that at this stage, you cannot categorize him as such. You are still busy with some investigation, and the only thing that you can crucify him for is the lack of playing a leadership role as a minister. Now, you are our main witness here, and we made this term of reference here on the basis of what we understood to be what you were meaning during the press briefing. So if you are to advise this committee, would you advise it to not continue with this allegation as it is written here? I'm asking that because my understanding is that you are saying Minister Mkhunu is not corrupt, so it will be premature to accuse him of corruption at this stage. So how do we pursue this allegation?
I wouldn't say that we must remove it, because maybe the word corrupt might be the issue, but the relationship between Minister Mkhunu and Mr. Brown Mokgotsi, it has a lot of question marks. Question marks in terms of the close vicinity that Brown Mokgotsi, or the role that Brown Mokgotsi is allowed to play in the affairs of the South African Police Service, being enabled by the minister. I said to you, there is a movement of monies from Nhlanhla to Mokgotsi. There's movement of monies from Nhlanhla to a businessman in Northwest. We happen to know of a trust account that is of interest, where we're going deeper to find out exactly how does this trust account receive money and where does it come from, who deposit the money and what, so they can be able to connect, finalize our investigation. But the relationship of it, if we're to use the word corrupt in the sense of criminality, is in an extent of the role that the minister is playing or played with the frustration of the work that is done within crime intelligence, the frustration of the work that is done by the team that is investigating in Gauteng. So the role that the minister plays in cooperation with Brown Mokgotsi and many others that might have something to do with it, it makes us realize that it is a relationship that is not based on seeing the law being enforced in the Republic, but is a relationship that is allowing criminality to thrive. So the terminology maybe that we might want to apply there might be something else. But indeed, the minister had played a role in assisting the criminal syndicates that we're talking about, that dealing with a variety of things, to feel comfortable about the minister's intervention to satisfy their needs.
Now, General, during the press briefing, you also mentioned that there was a meeting that was summoned by the minister in which General Sibiya was present. And the purpose of that meeting was to reconcile you and General Sibiya. And your reaction to the minister was that there can never be a relationship between a police officer and a criminal. Did you make that statement? Am I quoting you correctly?
I'm glad you're asking me that question because many things get quoted from what one says. In the statement that I made when I was responding to the media inquiry, it is not exact words I used when I was in a meeting. When the media is asking me the questions about this meeting, what was the purpose? And then I explain that the purpose of the meeting was to create peace. So when I add and I say definitely there cannot be any peace between a policeman and a criminal, it's a statement I'm making on the 6th of July. Not the statement I made in the meeting with the minister. In the meeting with the minister, the National Commission was present as a witness. The question was, Minister, why did you call me? And the minister explained himself the reason why. Then I asked him, but what is the problem between me and Sibiya that made you to let me travel from KZN coming here? And he said he thought there's issues. And Sibiya also started thinking that there were issues. And I proved to the minister that, but Sibiya was with me on the 27th of January in Durban. I took him on the boat like many other people that I was entertaining, hosting them, and when they visiting KZN, I was engaging with him. Yes, there was a time where I was not talking to him. By that time went past and I've unblocked him on the phone and we started talking afterwards. Because I had blocked him at one stage after the AKA incident. I don't want to get into that. Again, he wanted me to go and brief the minister about operational matters. They wanted the team to travel from Durban to go to Pretoria to go brief the minister at the time about the investigation on AKA. And I said, no. We don't account to the minister, to the politician about police operations. So I won't do that. The minister came down fighting hard with me on that one. And I took the punch, but I said, we're not going to do that. Because it's a criminal investigation. What is of an interest to you? That's why we had to fight. I decided to block him there. And because of his way to say to me at the time, I may have seen I'm giving an instruction because he's a deputy national commissioner. I'm talking about a person. I'll refer to him as a baby because he just became a lieutenant general. He still does not know how it feels to keep those rank on his shoulders. But he was able to tell me that I'm his junior. They're having so many years in this rank. So I took offense on that. I blocked him. So there was a time where I was not talking to him. He'll come to the province. I will give him vehicles today. He'll get lift from other people coming in until such time that eventually he was acting. There's another thing. The National Commission appointed him acting as a National Commission when he was out of the country. And now I had to account to this person, who then says he's my senior. But we started talking from there. So I'm trying to just display to you that the engagement we had with the minister and his resident, what was discussed there. So basically there was no reason for the minister to call that meeting. It was a false information that he received, that there's tensions between me and Sibiya. And we demonstrated that the man I was with him not long ago. So what are these tensions you're talking about? It was proven that there was no tensions. And we continue talking afterwards and the meeting adjourned.
So when did this meeting take place? Did it take place before your request to have a minister on WhatsApp? To have a meeting with the minister, Brown Mokgotsi, Sibiya, and others on WhatsApp?
It was
Which one preceded the other?
It was after that. I had sent a request to the minister for a meeting prior to that meeting.
Okay.
That's why when we arrived in that meeting, he acknowledged that he owes me a meeting. He said to in his own word, I know I owe you a meeting that you requested for, but we are not here for this one, for that one. We are here for something else. And the meeting that I think we had with the minister at his residence was on the 16th of May this year. 16th of May. There were two meetings, one with the National Commissioner alone and the SBIA and the minister, and the other one was me with SBIA and the minister. I asked the National Commissioner, what was this meeting? He said it was the same thing. The minister wanted to make peace between SBIA and the National Commission. And that was done, and I was next. He wanted to make peace between me and SBIA. I don't know why the minister felt important to be a mediator between SBIA and us. For what reason, I don't know. But the National Commission will explain why they were talking about. I was not there.
Okay. The Office of the Chief Justice, the OCJ, wrote a statement. I'm not sure if you saw it. After your press briefing, they were lamenting, saying that if you have proof of what you are alleging, you must submit to the relevant authorities. Did you see that statement?
I did not see the statement, and I did not submit anything.
Now, I'm asking this as a member now. I've got an interest since I'm a member of the Magistrate Commission and a member of the Justice Committee. I want to understand the intents of this influence that you are alleging in the judiciary. How is it taking place? Are these judicial officers influenced for how they should write judgments? To what extent are they influenced? If you can give us a clue, because some of us want to pursue these matters, not only in this committee, but in the portfolio committees wherein we sit, and also in the Magistrate Commission, because that's where the judiciary accounts on a regular basis. So if you can give us a clue, how does this influence take place? Do they influence judges to write judgment in a certain way or in a different way that I do not understand?
Honorable members, we are in the field of crime fighting as the South African Police Service. So we understand how the criminals operate. One of the things that we know for a fact as a police is that everyone has a price. And that is the strategy that the criminals employ, that everyone has a price. If you cannot bribe an arresting officer in blue uniform on the street, then definitely must bribe the detectives who carries a docket. If you're not successful in bribing a detective that carries a docket, you must bribe the prosecutor that prosecutes your case. If you're not able to bribe that prosecutor to prosecute your case, you must bribe a presiding officer. If you're not successful with that presiding officer, then you must bribe a correctional service official. There's a value chain of the justice system. In one way or another, there's weakness in the chain. Someone get caught, someone fall into that corruption. So it can't be spoken loosely that police officers, majority of them are corrupt and they get arrested. And when you go up the same chain, and you speak, it becomes like a taboo that it doesn't happen. Yet there's evidence in this country that the judges are in prison today, some of them, as a result. So we have presiding officers, maybe that's a word I should use, not judges, because it might not necessarily be judges, it might be some of the magistrates. Now let me use the word presiding officers. There are presiding officers in our court processes who are either paid or they are threatened not to give the certain judgments, or they are politically inclined to take certain judgments. Some of them you sit in the television and you watch and you say, oh, well, this is it's a first of its kind. But the judgment goes out. You disagree with it, but what can you do? It comes from one presiding officer and then it becomes law.
Okay. No, I'm asking that question because, like the honorable member of the EFF has said that the judiciary is an overarching component within the justice cluster or in the value chain of the justice cluster. The police and the prosecution can be as good as non-existent if there is a rot in the judiciary, because that would mean the work that you are doing will have no fruits, because people who decide on cases on whether they are thrown out of court or who convict people are judges. So if there is a problem there in the judiciary, then that would mean there is a serious problem. There is a deep-seated problem in the value chain of the justice cluster in South Africa. So that is why I'm asking this question, is because I want us to take further in our various committees, notwithstanding the work that we are doing here, which emanates from the terms of reference. Now, my second last question, General. Are there any factions in the SAPS that we are aware of? And if there are factions, which faction do you belong to?
There are no factions in the South African Police Service that I know of. I said earlier when I responded to one of the honorable members was that the political space that we operate within does create some tensions within the organization. And largely because of the labor arrangement that we have, the labor setup, employment arrangement that we have, that allows that involvement in politics by police officers. That is the only faction that you could even talk about, if there is. It used to be in the past, like I said. It's not even that much, if there's any, that exists these days. Back in the days, I'll use the province of KwaZulu-Natal where I come from. Back in the days, as I was recruited by the South African police at the time, and I worked in Potchefstroom and I moved to Durban, I happened to visit Ulundi during that Maka mission, just after the Maka mission. I happened to visit Ulundi, accompanying a colleague that went to get his things, that he was transferred to Durban. He came from KwaZulu Police. He was working at KwaZulu Police. When I arrived there and I found people that were dominated from KwaZulu Police, how they received me was a bit hostile. And you could see at the time that there's in their minds, this is not one of ours. They belong somewhere else. We belong here. So, but that has gone now. We find a lot of easy movement and interaction with the police in different parts of the province, and so is the country. So, but that political things that still exist and provided for in the Act is the one that, to some degree, creates some discomfort in terms of factionalism, but not to the extent that it disrupts the organization. There's preferences, yes. Some of our officials express it more than the others, but they're a minority. They're not many. So there's no faction. I belong to the South African Police Service that is commanded by the National Commissioner, and I'm subjected to the authority of the National Commissioner, like many others, all of us.
I'm not asking this question because I'm trying to be funny, but I was asking it because I want to understand the actual problem, because we need to be very inquisitive and not be excited when we're dealing with issues. My observation is that there is a concerted effort to deal with certain individuals. And General Khumalo is one of those who are one of the targets. What is your reaction to my observation?
Yeah, well, that one I agree with you. Definitely. There's a concerted effort to get rid of Khumalo from within crime intelligence, and also get him to back off on these investigations that have been in Gauteng. Those are the two main ones. That one I know. He had that experience in 2011 when I sent him to crime intelligence, and it affected him. He came back from there and he started enjoying working in organization again, coordinating operations across the country. It did not affect anyone. and is back at crime intelligence, the same attack again comes back.
And it's an old cancer within the SAPS from when General Cele was the minister, correct?
Look, I can talk from the tenor where I became exposed into this. To how far back it comes, I cannot talk about it. But from my experience that I had when General Cele was the National Commissioner, it's when I started learning more about the bad that is happening within the space.
Okay. No further questions, Chairperson. Thank you very much. In closing, Chair, General, it takes a brave man to do what you have done. We really appreciate you, and you must continue to be brave. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Nomvalo. Honorable Skosana. Yeah, the time is running, Honorable Skosana.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to start by asking General Mkhwanazi, in this criminal case which you have opened regarding the defeating the ends of justice in which you are the complainant, who's the suspect?
The investigation is unfolding and the suspect will be identified as when the investigation is completed. But the people that are main complainants for me that play their role in terms of the removal of case dockets, that will involve the Minister of Police as well as General Sibia. There might be others.
If the minister interference has already been established as fact, what are the constitutional consequences when the executive actor deliberately usurp the operational policing powers? Is this not in effect a constitutional crisis?
Yeah, no, definitely. When I invited the honorable members to look at the Constitution and as a part of the proposal to try and mitigate the risk that we've identified, it means, therefore, it's a constitutional issue that should not be ignored because how the organization is established is written in the Constitution. How it's structured, how it functions is catered for in the Act. So it becomes a legal question that needs to be answered. We cannot ignore that. And of course, we have to look at the roles that other people are playing. So if you're going to have the question as to the definition of the word that is written in the Constitution that directs the powers of the minister versus the powers of the National Commission and what it means may or may not do, if this thing is debatable, as it has been, it means there has to be a revisit in the Constitution so there's a proper interpretation so everyone understands what it says.
Does this pattern of interference we've seen pointing to individual ministers and acting alone, or does it reveal the broader cabinet level on factional directives to neutralize the political dangerous investigation?
Yeah, well, ministers are going to play different roles, and one get to be exposed to some, and some will not be exposed to. I spoke about my tenure as acting National Commissioner, so I could talk about the role of Minister Mteto at that time, the late. But I can't talk about the other ministers that follows that because I'm not accounting directly to them, and there was never much that got to be exposed on in terms of the level of interference with police operations. But I know for a fact that once there's an investigation against a person that might be known by someone senior, there will be an interest. Interest, majority of the time, is not about how good is the case progressing, but how can that case somehow be stalled or not investigated. That is a common thing that happens. And it happens not only influenced by the executive authorities of the police. It can be, there are provincial commissioners that don't have a good relationship with their premiers. simply because they're investigating cases that their premiers are against. And that makes the Provincial Commission not even in good terms with the Premier.
Earlier, General, if you remember well, I've asked about the IDEC, in particular Brian Padiachi, which you've spoken about, and the issue of parking telephones. And one of the 10 people which were backed by Nhlanhla, and I'm just told that he has, after the conviction, he was relieved of his duties, but Colonel Zulu and, as we said earlier, we are not sure about General Mutli. And some of the people who were backed were business people, political people. And the telephone numbers, they'll take an honorable member like me, if I was honorable at that time, and put it on that list. One of those people were, I think the case is still, I'm not sure whether it's finished because I've been following it. And there was a complaint about that case of Mr. I think Pandey. And the other one was a top business guy around KwaZulu-Natal, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, who was as well being backed illegally so. Now, Perumel is still at work as we speak. And his captain was convicted. And they were doing this thing together. Is it correct in your view?
I don't know who's Perumel that the member is referring to.
I mean, Brian Padiachi.
You are saying is at work today?
Yeah, he's still at work today.
Not in the police?
Not in the police. As I said earlier, he took dockets to IDEC.
I'm not sure if he took dockets to IDEC because as far as I could remember, he was not working at IPED. So the member spoke about dockets of IPED that went to IDEC.
He took the dockets which he was investigating while he was still a policeman to where he's employed now.
I wouldn't say that is true, honorable member, because the records I have is that Padiachi was never a detective. So whether he took the dockets legally or not is something else.
Honorable Skosana, just a moment. Let me help you. General, these questions, are they related to your statement?
Which page in my statement, Honorable Chair?
No, the questions that the honorable member, do you have any recollection of those names in your statement?
No, the name I know, but the action of taking docket, I don't know. That's why I'm trying to be clear about that. That's why I will be assisted to say which part of the statement, because I don't remember writing such a thing.
Okay.
I think, look, if there is a way in which you want to link your question, get a proper dimension from the statement and redirect it.
Thank you, Chair.
So that you don't confuse him.
Thank you, Chair.
But perhaps I can assist, Chair, in my understanding where the member wants to ask a question about whether Mr. Padiachi should remain in the employ of IDEC under the cloud of having participated in the wrong in the past.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a question that maybe IDEC need to answer as to what criteria they used to employ him.
Okay.
And what were they looking at, and what skills profiles he has, and whether did they do any quality control about his past history that he had before coming in, and many other questions that the IDEC might need to answer. But from where I'm standing, a person of his caliber to be employed at IDEC, the IDEC that by according to the Act of the NPA is charged with dealing with a top-notch kind of investigation, it needs a seasoned detective to be employed in that space. To employ a person who does not even have a qualification on investigation, let alone knowing how the case docket looks like, it's a concern. It then makes me suspect that there might be many other reasons other than what the IDEC is envisaged to do as an entity within the NPA. So the presence of Patayache and the case that is currently in court and his role that has been given to him by court, it makes me believe that perhaps that what the honourable member is talking about, which he was accused or suspected to be involved in the past at crime intelligence, perhaps has been allowed to play the same role again, but from IDEC side, and that becomes unethical.
Thank you, General, and perhaps, Chair, I will reserve that for IDEC as well. But my worry was about that the dockets, when somebody is no longer working with SAPS, but he does take dockets if was that allowed. But anyway, I'll ask when they appear here. What precedent does it set for the future ministers if this committee allows an executive to dissolve special units at the very moment they touch sensitive political grounds?
If such behavior, as we've seen what has happened with Mr. Mkhwanazi, is allowed to continue, and the Constitution is not clear as to whether the minister is overstepped or did not overstep, it's got a potential of undermining the existence of the National Commission of South African Police Service, because then we're inviting a political head to decide on operational things of the police. It then undermines the administration of justice, because a police officer who was appointed in terms of the law and given powers to investigate is not allowed to do that, but the person is not appointed in terms of the Police Act and not given powers to investigate dictates the investigation that must happen. It will undermine the entire justice system of the Republic.
Given that the President appointed the Interministerial Committee in 2018 to protect communities from political violence, what does it mean that a successor minister reverse that mandate? Does this amount to betrayal of the presidential directive?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't know. I think the President might need to answer that one. He accounts to the President.
Anyway, hopefully he'll be here. If non-police actors such as Brown Mokgotsi could access a classified intelligence and case files, what does that say about the structural collapse of internal vetting and secrecy protocols in crime intelligence?
I can present before the Commissioner that it has collapsed already. The members of Parliament have access to information from intelligence. The communication, the media houses have got access of information from crime intelligence, and the classified information of vetting of people has been accessed by the members of this Parliament. It therefore means that whole section within the vetting of the South African Police Service, those people working there might need to move all of them, and we replace them with total new squad as a point of departure. And many other players that are within the crime intelligence needs to be removed. We need a serious overhaul in the division crime intelligence. That's why I invited the committee members to look at the performance of intelligence before General Khumalo come into that space and the performance after his arrival. If the performance doesn't look good, it means he himself must go. But if the performance is different and looks much better now, then definitely he needs to be given an opportunity to clean that place up.
Is the General aware that yourself and the National Commissioner, that the IDEC wants to arrest you? Are you aware of that?
The members of IDEC only shared a strategy with me. The when is going to happen, I don't know. They only shared a strategy with me is that this one is going to move to that position, that one is going to move that position, this one is going to control the NPA, this one is going to control the court, and this one is going to be the president of the country. That's the plan that I was given, and how they are executing it. But the timelines, I was not given the timelines. The only timelines I got to know was a day before Khumalo was arrested.
Should we then understand this infiltration as ordinary corruption, or does it rise to the level of state capture of the security apparatus in the country?
I can say the latter. This was a capture of the state. This, in our assessment, as I said earlier, there's a criminal intent coming on one side and there's a political interest on the other side. So the political player wants to ascend to the higher office in the country and allowing the criminals to assist him to get to that position. So therefore, the person who's ultimately going to be in charge is not the leader of the country, but the criminal that is behind the person getting to that position. Because if the criminal, if allowed you to get to a certain position, is in charge, you'll do what he tells you to do in future.
If organized crime has penetrated the police, as you said, prosecutors, correctional services, and even the judiciary, are we not dealing with a parallel state? And what are the implications for South African sovereignty?
I appeared before this Portfolio Ad Hoc Committee and I spoke about the experience I had during the riots in 2021, where I had a close meeting with the very senior people within the security class of our country. And I raised issues about what the government is allowed to become of our defense force, simply because the money is taken away from them. Well, as I said, I'm not a soldier. When the soldiers speak, they sound as if they're arrogant, but I can speak as a policeman. They are big brothers that we're supposed to rely on. But at this current state, they are not able to help us. So if they cannot help us and we fail, that means we're on our own. We don't want to be in that state. We want to be proud of the defense force. So the sense of what we're seeing, what we see currently, capabilities that exist there, it's a problem. And coming back into the policing, at least we have some capacity, some resources as the police. There are a few things there and there that we might need to adjust, but the government is pumping a lot of resources to the police to some degree. It might be within us of how we best managing those resources. That might need to be relooked at. Legislations and the risk that maybe exist as how we are structured and stuff like that, that might need to be looked at. But the sovereignty of the state is indeed compromised, not compromised only by what has happened with these people that we referred to on the 6th of July, that we continue talking about. But if the security of the state is geared or assisted to be able to fight these attempts, then there will be stability in the country and there will be safety in our country, because we'll then be able to infiltrate and arrest and remove the people that are causing problem for us.
General, I think I'm going to ask you, because I'm the only one who's been intimidated a bit tonight because people want to go home. If what you said to us about the soldiers is anything to go by, it's a concern for this country that we cannot even afford a diesel. In 2020, a diesel. Does this committee need to consider whether foreign actors, drug cartels, cross-border syndicates are leveraging this political protection to operate within impunity inside the Republic? And I'm going to ask you 3 questions, because of time, apparently. If criminal syndicates can manipulate policing priorities in evidence handling, should we not treat this as a national security breach equivalent to espionage? What risk now exists for communities, councillors, whistleblowers who were under PKTT protection, but whose dockets are frozen, if there's any docket frozen?
Well, the investigations are continuing currently, and I can give assurance to the committee members that the situation in the province of KwaZulu-Natal is no longer the same as it used to be when the team was formed. But we are going to the local government election next year, and the test is going to be right there. Whether are we not going to see similar things happening again? But as we speak, the number of incidents that are affecting politicians have reduced drastically. So if the minister were to approach it in that fashion and say, but there's so many incidents were happening, were reported before, they've reduced over time up to this, is a need to still carry this on. The answer, if we were to ask me, I was going to say to him, I think it's about time maybe we save resources and we slowly stop this operation of the task team, simply because that which was a mandate of the establishment, that risk, the threat that was there, has been to some degree mitigated. But the comfort I was going to get as we pass the elections next year to say, have we reached that level of maturity in the province that we allow people to compete independently and participate in the political party and allow the executive of political parties to decide about the people that are involved. Honorable Chair and members, as you are still asking the question, and I forgot to come back to you, Honorable Chair, I'm sorry to squeeze this one in. It is simple because I had promised that I was going to get information with regard to the question I was asked by one of the committee members about the case of Kashana that led into the establishment of the team. I can't remember who asked me that question. There are 5 people that were arrested on that case, and that case is going to appear in court. They are all on bail. The matter is set for trial on the 12th to the 16th of January next year. And I must say that the first suspect on this, Konsinati Gambu, was a councillor who was a councillor at the time, and a person was competing to become a councillor with him. He organized that he must be killed because he did not want this person to take over from him. So that was the main reason. So he was the one that ordered that hit, and the rest of the people are the enablers. So 5 people in custody as a result of that case.
My last question before I'm stopped. You've spoken about that we'll have local government election next year. Rightly so. If the chain of justice itself is compromised, what assurance remains for the public that election 2026 will not be met by political assassination and checked by law enforcement? Should Parliament classify political killings and their protection networks as form of domestic terrorism under national security law? If SAPS Act permits a minister to exercise such devastating influence, should Parliament not urgently amend the Act and to ensure operational independence in the same way the judicial independence is entrenched? That's perhaps, the National Commissioner as well will come in on that one, but I guess you are very capable, General, perhaps to give us an advice as you've done on the last page where you said perhaps it will be proper for us to reconsider that we have a densely populated a country now. When you take into cognizance foreign nationals who are in this country, you estimated around 100 million people in the country, if I remember well, that perhaps it's a high time that the provincial commissioners or provinces have the powers as well. And my last one, I'm not sure whether it's too much because I gave already 3. Can I give you the last 2, General? And then I'm done. No, they want to sleep. Don't worry. We'll go and sleep like yesterday. We can sleep tomorrow as well. Now, this is my last one, Chair.
Of course, you request to ask the last question.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
That is granted.
Yes, but I just wanted to find out whether the General is too much, I've asked too many questions. But thank you, Chair, for granting me that.
Perhaps if you allow me, Chair and honourable members, and majority of the honourable member with respect has been comments that seems to seek my opinion on which I might not comment on much of the things. I'm not so sure specific that the member will want me to respond on some of those that you've raised.
Yeah, there are questions, straight question on that, General. My question was very simple. Let me just, because you spoke about the issue of local government next year. No, not long ago. So I was just asking that, as you said, are people going to be safe because of the political assassination, as you said yourself? It might come back. The law enforcement will have the capacity to make sure that our people are safe. But as I said, my last one, General, on this one, I'm going to make a comment to say, you are being attacked as we are sitting here. I hope you are aware that SANEF, the clothes are off. Because you spoke earlier about the media. You know that there's a rock unit as well in the media space. Karen Morgan, I can name them. Paulo van Wyk, Katie Mutlatlane. The list is endless. They are closing the ranks. We are being attacked as I'm talking to you here because you just spoke today. Now, should perhaps Parliament now consider invoking the powers to recommend the removal of any member who is implicated in the obstruction of justice? Why I'm saying that to you, General, cases which are opened, perhaps the National Commissioner, but I just want to give you that. Even myself, I've opened a case 2 years ago. Nothing has happened. The investigation officer is not saying anything. Now, I'm just saying to you, it's difficult for us as members of Parliament. It's even worse with people on the ground. Hence, I was asking about this local government which you've spoken about, that our people will be safe or not. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, Honorable Chair, that's what I was saying. Majority of what the member was saying is comments. The safety of the citizens for the local government elections. I think that the SAPS management is going to come and give a presentation before the South Africans about the security measures put in place. It is premature for now to talk about it here in this House. We don't know the dates of those elections coming next year. Until such time that we are coming closer to the events, then the analysis is done on the ground. When the political parties are campaigning, decision of the people of the political parties as to who are the people that are going to be standing and the mood on the ground, that will help us to assess whether the elections are going to run safe. But I'm confident that looking at the pattern of incident affecting politicians in KZN over time, that the situation is quite stable. And with the hard working men and women out there, we should provide a safer election process. Local government might happen all at once come next year, but on frequent basis, there are by-elections that we are policing in the country. And they just don't draw attention, but they have been policed quite successful. So local government shouldn't be anything different than what we normally do with by-elections. So I'm confident in as far as that is concerned. But other than that, the rest of the other comments, what SANEF is saying about what I said in this House, well, they can say what I say. And I said again, my comment was not about the institutions of media. My comment was about individuals. Same thing that the media is going to talk about police corruption, a word that is loosely used out there. It doesn't mean that all police officers are wrong, but there are individuals within the police. So what is good for them should be good for the police. What is good for the police should be good for SANEF as well. I hope as they respond to what I said today, they're going to realize and acknowledge the fact that I was specific to individuals. I was not generalizing. And when they requested a counterintelligence, it was specific to certain journalists, and there are a handful of them, that you say, how would you allow these persons to be in a position of this classified information and make it public? Is that what the freedom of the media entails? I'm saying it to the lawmakers. If the lawmaker says no, the law says that, so be it. But I can point out that there's a risk here. If the law provides for it, it's fine. The law says so. I'm a law enforcer. I can't challenge that. But I can give an input where I see danger. There is a danger there. I've said before, I appreciated media for making us to sit here today, because if they were not there, whatever message we wanted to communicate on the seas was not going to reach South Africans. And so it was through the very same media that made us to communicate the message we wanted to communicate. So it'd be wrong then for me to simply say the media is bad. No, it's not. But there are bad apples within. We can't ignore them. That's my comment on in terms of communication. If what an old member is saying with regard to SANEF is concerned, I'm not saying they said anything wrong. I have not seen anything they say. Obviously, the supporters of those people that I named might then counter and write things and communicate things and whatever thing. They've got freedom to do that.
Thanks very much, General. Honorable Cameron.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to get straight to the questions, General.
Yeah.
The first question is, members of the Police Committee are fully aware, and of this committee, that policing and security governance have become continuous crisis management exercises with no sustained period of stability or reform. In that context, when you allege that the security cluster has essentially, it sounds like saying it's imploded, are you suggesting that this permanent state of reaction has itself eroded the cluster's strategic and operational capacity?
The cluster comprises of many departments. The one department that I might not, or maybe the two that I might not talk too much about is the NPA and the judiciary. I cannot go deeper to know exactly to what extent do they have challenges there. I can talk about the law enforcers. Us, the correctional service, amongst others, Metro Police and those that are working in our space are really challenged. We are seriously challenged. So I can talk about those because I'm familiar with that setup of the issues that we are facing. Something ought to be done in that space. If you visit the correctional service and you are told that there's a raid, and that raid had uncovered so many dangerous things, drugs, phones, knife, firearms to some degree inside the prison. A place that's supposed to be sanitized in the sense that there should not be any communication with the outside world that is not monitored by authorities, which must be a landline if there's any opportunity to phone. But then we have criminals that are sitting in there, convicted fellows, that are wearing expensive clothes. They're displaying them in public from prison. That tells you that the life behind bars is comfortable, and it sends a wrong message. So it is so because of the compromise that we have experienced within. So the turbo burster is no mistake. It's just an indication of the extent of the problem that we have within the correctional services. The police environment have its own challenges that we need to deal with. We have, as I said earlier, we have a lot of police officers or children or kids out there, youngsters joining the police, not for the love of the organization, but as a job opportunity. So they arrive here to earn a salary at the end of the month as a stepping stone to acquire experience so they can move further to where they want to pursue their careers as per their qualifications. So that is the unfortunate reality. It is so because of the unemployment rate that we have in our country. So it's some of the challenges that we face. And as we recruit, train, and retain, we must be mindful of that we need to try by all means to get people that are ethical and people that will be able to help us fight crime and protect the citizens going forward. And the Metro Police are similar to us. They're affected by the same thing. The military who are within the cluster that I was talking about, honestly, everyone there to see that it pains us to see how the military is struggling in terms of resources. And that is all dependent on the budget. So until the government assists in making sure that those that are protecting South Africa, they're capable of doing that, because you can't call the police if the war comes across the border. Police won't help you there. You need the military. So if the military is not well equipped, you need to ask yourself a question as to who's responsible for making sure they're well equipped. It is this government that must help them. So I'm pleading for such interventions within this security cluster to be made. And again, I can't talk much about intelligence. I don't work in that department. I don't know what they do in terms of state security. Whether things are all good or not good, I will not be able to comment on that. I can only talk about the law enforcement and truly limitation on the things that I know that there's been shared with me and that I've seen. And hence I said, I've been engaging a lot of senior officers within the military, I know for a fact, and I investigate cases. I know the challenges that are within correctional services because that's where we detain people, and cases being investigated that they hit and the murder, the robbery plan behind bars. It's what we picked up through our investigations. That's what concerns us.
Thank you, General. The second question is you've accused the cluster or made the statement about the cluster of being weakened over time. Parliament has been seized with these crises for years, and do you believe that the constant noise, politicization, and factional narratives around the police have made it more difficult for Parliament to perform effective and non-partisan oversight?
Because I'm not a parliamentarian, it's difficult for me to say this is what Parliament can do or cannot do. But the Parliament passes legislation. So as they go out there, and I believe they're supposed to look at the implementation of those legislation, whether is it happening or not happening. If it's not happening, why not? But the consequences as a result of non-compliance with such can be questionable. And I would like the honourable members to look at the behaviours or the how each individual portfolio committee is handled. How each department of government accounts to the portfolio committee. The behavior is totally different. And the issues that have been addressed, in terms of the accounting, the plans that are presented before those committees, what areas do they cover those plans? I don't think there's a standard. That's why you're going to find other committee members makes the news all the time when they meet, and other committees don't make the news. I'm sure there are portfolio committee that we don't even know whether they exist because you never see them on TV because they don't make the news. There's no controversial engagement that happens there. The ones where there's a bit of controversy, that's when you're going to see them in the news. That is just unfortunate what happens. It could be because of that standard that is set within the Parliament of how to do an oversight. But I must say, that the oversight role can also be compromised by this legislation because you have the NCOP on one side that goes to provinces and do the oversight, and you have the portfolio committees that goes to provinces and do oversight. Then you also have the local provincial legislatures that have got their own committees that does oversight. So at times the station or the area that's been visited become exhausted by the so many visits that are coming in and the recommendations coming out of that. Some of them is not possible to implement and so forth. And in some instances where there are good recommendations, there's no follow-up on those. And you arrive today, you present this, and there's an oversight on this, you come the next day, that thing is forgotten and there's a new thing. We don't take stock and be able to account and respond about the past things we've done in the past 12 months and do a summary as we're closing the year to account for everything else. We don't do those things. And some of the things that we might have to look at.
Thank you, General. General, the third question is, has the perpetual firefighting approach within SAP's so-called firefighting approach, restructuring, redeployments, task team reshuffles, become a symptom of leadership instability that prevents the institution from ever reaching long-term stability or coherence? I think this touches on what we discussed earlier today regarding the fact that no national commissioner has really finished a term.
Yeah, part of the challenges, honourable members, that we have with regard to the SAPS, that we must not run away. Yes, national commissioners have not been able to finish the terms because of many challenges, political and some of them administrative and interventions that are happening that leads into such. But police officers that are out there that are employed to work in the police and perform the task that is given to them, they do try their level best to execute those tasks under the circumstances that they are subjected to, of course. But the continuous changes that are happening in the organization definitely does have an impact in how we're operating as a South African Police Service. We might want to put measures in place that are going to put some controls on that, in order not to allow us to restructure all the time. We might want to look at the employment condition of a police officer, because some of the weaknesses that we have is that we employ a person on a permanent basis. Our performance agreements that we signed with the police officers, it does not necessarily help to make these police officers to deliver the service that is supposed to be doing. We, as far as I've been in the South African Police Service, I don't remember us dismissing anyone from the organization because of poor work performance. When you have a workforce that is only employed and a person is permanently employed, if he doesn't deliver, he gets transferred from one place to another, he doesn't perform, and he is sent for career counseling. He doesn't perform, we try this intervention, we try to negotiate with the person that applied for a job. Then we try to assist that person to perform work. And yet he came and he said, I can do A to Z. And if you're not able to do A to Z, we don't fire the person. So it becomes then a kind of a retirement village, if you use the word. You come in at the age of 19, you're going to leave the organization at the age of 60. For this number of years in the organization, you're not contributing anything, and the organization doesn't get rid of you. It adds on the cost of this organization, and yet there's no production coming from you. It's some of the challenges we're having. That's why I've called within the POC, and the colleagues will remember that I had requested that we really have to change the employment condition of some of the position within the police. And they must have that rotation process that we're having in the police. Because once you are sitting comfortable in one position for too long, I think the legislature, when they came up with the rule that you can only work for 5 years as a provincial commissioner and a national commissioner, but to trying to mitigate the risk of you being too comfortable in this position of authority that you might end up causing problems in the future. You end up not listening to the executive authority and amongst others. So the station commanders, those deputy national commissioners, those generals at the head office are not subjected to that. They are on a permanent basis. If you become a head of intelligence, you can be a head of intelligence for 20 years if need be. You stay there because there's no term contract associated with that position. So it's some of the employment condition that might need to be looked at. Not to say that people shouldn't finish the term like the national commissioner, but once you have a term contract that is performance based, if you don't deliver, you're shown the door. It might help us to have a reason of why we exist in this organization. So that at the end of the month, when the month end comes, you can produce your performance sheet and say, this is what I did in this month to justify my existence in this organization. We don't have that. And we don't make members accountable for such.
General, would it be fair to say this is where the union issue that you mentioned earlier also comes in? The example is that sometimes it feels like certain representatives in union structures, they blur the lines between being defense lawyers and being labor reps. And it almost is celebrated when you keep someone in the service despite their transgression. The reason I ask that is if you look at the CI structure and two of the generals that you mentioned during your testimony that were directly promoted from lieutenant colonel to major general, several times on some of their cases, I'm aware that the unions fought tooth and nail to keep them in the South African Police Service despite those transgressions. You don't have to zoom in on them specifically, but is this part of that problem?
I want, now that we talk about this, and I'm reminded by something, honorable member, that's why you see me touching on my phone, because I wanted to go on the internet and see if I can see something, because at one stage we had a minister in South Africa who was a minister of finance. And he said something once, I cannot remember where it was this thing. When he said, that's former Minister Tito Mboweni, when he said, the trade unions should stop blaming so-called capitalists for South Africans' poor economic performance and unemployment, because they are the most capitalist of them all. They are listed at JSE. the unions, labor unions. That was Tito Mbowen saying that, not me. The unions thrive from the existence of an employee in the organization because they deduct money from that person. So if you terminate that service, they lose revenue. So the more the workforce, the more money for labor unions. It is unfortunate reality. That is a setup. And they take that money and they invest it in business. That's why they will end up being listed at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So it exists in the police. It exists in many departments of government. It is allowed in this country. Whether the ones in the police are problematic in us carrying out the task, I will say the unions that are within the South African Police Service, the fortunate part we have is that majority of them are police officers. So they work with us, they support management, and they do fight for the employees because they're mandated to do that. And what has threatened them of late is the presence of solidarity. There's a union that operates outside the structure of the police. A member affiliates to solidarity and affiliates to the unions within the police. And when the when the member is transgressed and the member asks for representation from the union might see that this is wrong. We should not represent this member on this. But then they've got this threat on the side. If they don't, the member goes to solidarity outside. Solidarity takes it to court. Once they win that case, they sue the union because then the union fail on their contract obligations they have towards the member. So they are forced, the union, to represent the member. Even deep in their hearts, they don't believe in it. But because they've signed a contract, they have to. So you can't blame them on that if they are doing that. It is the structure of how the labor in these countries is operating. So I cannot accuse the unions for doing that. We meet with management of labor and they make suggestions on what we should do to improve policy. And I must say, as much as we might blame the labor union in existence, yes, they are there. But what I found in my experience in organizations is that a labor unionist is more knowledgeable about police work than the police management. A junior shop steward can better manage a police station than a station commander because they're clued up about a lot of things. They know the policies. It might be because they study these things so they can challenge management. But by so doing, they empower themselves. They end up becoming more knowledgeable than you'll get from an officer that is a station commander sometimes. And when you don't give them opportunity to listen to their inputs, you lose an opportunity of a better performance of the organization. Because if you listen to what they tell you at times, because they spend time in interacting with the employees, if you do that, it's going to help you to have a peace within the working environment and improve performance in the workplace. I've seen that in KZN because we have this relationship that we have with them. The performance and the attitude of the employees is good. It is them that sometimes come to me and say, General, our members are committing a lot of misconduct. We don't like to always go and represent them. Can you allow us, give us vehicles so that we can do a roadshow and go and meet up with them? I do that. They go out and do proactive interventions by addressing problems and telling the members that don't do this and that because you are going to be charged. You are breaking the law and we're expecting, or the police, you expect us to defend you. And that has helped because they become proactive. So they do play the part. But the unfortunate part when I was making reference in terms of labor law is when the member has done wrong is dismissed. They might have represented the member, but eventually it's dismissed. They also are happy and say, no, this one was bad. But then he goes and he appeals it. So when you go and appeal somewhere, on technical ground, he wins the appeal and he comes back. Yes, Gerald Sibia we're talking about today. He was dismissed. He went to appeal. The organization did not oppose that. And the court ruled in his favor and then he comes back. So there are many employees in the organization that returns like that. And then you then scratch yourself and say, but he was already gone. But because of labor law, he has the right to appeal that and he comes back. Some degrees, the dismissal might have been unfair. But in many other instances, the dismissal was justified. But unfortunately, because of this gap in the system, default judgments keeps coming. Maybe you will ask us to give you a list of all the default judgments and where we reinstated members and what cases they were dismissed on. It will shock you to learn that we've got convicted fellows that we had to reinstate back in the organization because of the default judgments.
Thank you, General. The Honourable Schikkeling has two questions. I know we still have 10 minutes, so I'm going to give her an opportunity to do her questions. Thank you, Chair.
No, if you are done with your questions, you hand over to the Chair, and the Chair recognizes.
Apologies, Chair. I hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. The Chair recognizes the happy birthday, Honourable Member, Honourable Schikkeling.
Thank you, Chair. Fortunately, it's almost over. Thank you, General. In your testimony, you referred to a consignment of drugs that was stolen from the Hawks facility. I think it's 200 million rands worth of cocaine. Do you suspect that this was the same cocaine shipment stolen from the Durban Hawks offices, which was later transported to Gauteng and which formed part of the disciplinary process you presided over involving General Khan?
No, it was not. That was a different consignment. That was a consignment that arrived at Durban Harbour and was picked up from the ship in a container and transported straight to Gauteng without being detected. It arrived in Gauteng in Germiston at the depot of the trucking company. It stayed overnight, and the following day it was moved to the final destination, which was in Erating. That's where, when they opened it and they found those bags. So it was a completely different consignment.
Thank you. General, just as a question, did we ever find that other consignment of drugs?
The one that was lost at the office of the Hawks?
Yes.
Not that I know of. They were never found.
Thank you, General. So, during the disciplinary process involving General Khan, did you experience any form of pressure or influence from the presidency or any other person, I'm just going to say party, but person, to clear him of wrongdoing? And if so, who was this person? Where did the pressure originate from?
No, nobody spoke to me directly with regard to General Khan discipline. The only closest intervention that I became aware of was the one that was encouraging an employer rep to resign from the service. Other than that, there was never any intervention. Well, the only terrible things that were happening at the time is that the media were writing a lot about me during that period.
General, I'm really worried about that other 200 million rand, but that's a question for another day. My last question is, it's really important for us that the SAPS works for the citizens of South Africa, but it's just as important for us that the SAPS works for its members too. And it really isn't working for its members at the moment. I think it's something that we can all agree on. Is there hope for crime intelligence in South Africa, General? And is there, in your opinion, has CI been infiltrated so badly that there's no hope left? Is there still honest, honourable members within the ranks of crime intelligence? And if there are, what is your recommendation to fix this division and make it functional again so that it can work for all South Africans?
Yeah, well, I might not be 100% about percentages, but I can speak about KZN. 60-70% of the successes that we achieve in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, it is through intelligence. What you see as the outcome of the police operation in KwaZulu-Natal, there is a crime intelligence involved. So members, despite the challenges that they are having, they still work, they produce. The problem at crime intelligence is central at the head office. That's where the problem is. You'll never hear much of the noise coming from provinces. But there's a lot of noise coming from the head office. It is that because there are those people that are closer to that purse, to that vault, that want to have control over that money there. It is there where the problem is. It is there which I was saying, the honourable members. In order to assist, to change things at crime intelligence, you must assess how crime intelligence was performance-based before and how is it now when the new management is in existence at crime intelligence. If the new management performance is promising, I'm going to request that the honorable members assist the current management to get rid of the members within crime intelligence that are from the old school, that are part of the people who are frustrating the performance of crime intelligence. We know them by names, but they've got labor rights, and they need an aggressive approach to get them out of that place because they are causing problems. So until we clean it up there at the head office, then the provinces will follow. We advertised post vacancies. They were advertised, supposed to be filled, and the minister put a stop on them. KZN does not have a commander, as we speak, because the minister put a stop on it. The National Commissioner has re-advertised again. Perhaps we might want to pay attention on the process of filling those vacancies that have been advertised, the how part, before people are appointed. What process is in place to fill this place, these posts, the interviews, who participate in the interviews, what is the screening procedure, the vetting procedure prior to the appointment of these individuals in those vacancies. So those are some of the things that maybe might be assisted by the Parliament to make sure that it helps us to clean that space up. So, but those that are sitting at head office, to be honest, in 2011 we removed majority of senior managers which was there because we wanted to reset the system, and they were moved permanently. They did not object to that. We have senior managers currently that are there that I feel should also be moved, and we need to be assisted, or we need to assist the management of CI. But if the assessment of the members feels that the performance of the current management at CI is not satisfactory also on its own, therefore even themselves must go. That means we have to restart and find a completely new staff. But that, as I said, is in a management level and is at the head office in the main. On the ground level, at the provincial level, the work still goes on. An operator on the ground needs to have a resource to work, a vehicle to travel, financial resources to be able to recruit informers and be able to reward informers when they come with information, and then it be measured on that performance. And if he applies for interception of a phone, that approval must come with speed, because there could be robbery happening. There could be murder that is imminent that might be missed if such assistance is not made. There are gadgets that are procured that are sitting at the head office that should be decentralized to crime intelligence at the province so they can speed up the investigation, interception of criminal syndicates. So it's some of those things that needs to be done at crime intelligence that should help empower the provincial level to be able to deliver the service. Other than that, I wouldn't say crime intelligence is dysfunctional. I will say that the head office of crime intelligence remains a problem. And unfortunately, they make the news all the time because of their ulterior motive, not to fight crime. So that's where the focus should be in the main.
Thank you very much, General. I just need a question of clarity. You saying that crime intelligence in the provinces basically functions well, and that's what I get from you, is that you say that the crime intelligence officers in the provinces are basically doing their job, and the problem that you see is actually crime intelligence's head office in Pretoria. Is that not General Khumalo that's in charge of crime intelligence?
That's exactly what I was saying, that I might speak from outside and not being part of intelligence. I started by saying it might help for the honorable members to first do an assessment on the performance of the current management under General Khumalo's leadership in the past 3 years or so when he was in office, and compare that with the previous years. There's been audits done at crime intelligence. There are reports available that will show you whether is there anything good coming out of this, and is there a strategy to change things at crime intelligence. And if you believe in that, then support the management so they can implement it. And if the management says we want to get rid of this one and that one, help the management to get rid of those so that they be allowed to execute that which they're planning to execute. Situations are not necessarily 100% perfect at the provincial level, but to some degree, work is still done. Painful as it is, there are members that sometimes use their own vehicles to go and meet up with the informers that they shouldn't be. Those are the vehicles that must be provided by intelligence. But because of the challenges that the members' limitation of the resources, they don't have that. Why they don't have that? It might be because instead of buying 10 vehicles, which at one stage I was accused of, by some of the members that when I was acting, I authorized the purchase of, Mr. Polisovan said that. You authorize the purchase of vehicles fleet for the operational members on the ground, not to minimize a few luxury vehicles for the senior managers at the head office. A cost of one SUV of 1.5 million rand can afford at least 4, 5, or even 6 smaller cars that might be sufficient for the members to go in and work on the ground. So those are the resources that the members need, and they are not sufficient. There's shortages there. They need to get that. Cell phones, members are not able to communicate with their informers because they don't have these communication devices. We must give them these things. These are the challenges they experience practical on the ground. I said access to money. They don't have to sign and approve the client. We can come up with another control measures of paying the informer. But when the informer comes with information and he gives you a firearm, we must reward it. If the informer comes and happy to crack a certain case, we must reward it. If you don't reward it, you're not going to get information tomorrow. So those are the things that the members are crying about on the ground, practical. So whether those things are done to what extent by crime intelligence, I guess the National Commission, Gerald Kumalo might talk about it. But from where I'm standing, with those challenges in the province where I come from, the members from crime intelligence makes us shine still in the province, regardless of the challenges they have. Yes, amongst them, there are bad ones. But by and large, those that are there, they are doing what is supposed to be done.
Thank you very much, General. I appreciate your answers.
Thank you so much, Honorable Shigele. I think the honorable members have covered ground with the questions that they have raised with you, General. And I must just ask you 2 questions. And I think they are very simple questions. The first question, General, would be the oldest case in the 121. When could it have been opened with the police?
Honorable Chair, I don't have the details there, but I can get you that information in no time if you allow me to, but I don't really have it here in mind.
You may not have to be accurate. Is it over 5 years, over 10 years?
Honorable Chair, on these cases that are within 121, majority of them will have been the cases that happened after the establishment of the team. Majority of the cases that the team took over in 2018 when they started, they've been able to finalize those dockets. An arrest been made, dockets been eventually closed. I would like to believe if there is any that will be older than 2018, there will be very few. But majority of them would be new cases that will have been reported in the past 2 years. That will form the majority of those dockets.
Okay. And then when this decision, because my understanding is that when you establish a PKTT, the way you said is announced, there is so much fanfare in the country, people start to believe that these matters will be investigated and hopefully justice will be done. When this PKTT was disbanded or the letter was made public, that now the PKTT is disbanded, did the SAPS authorities somehow got into contact with the affected families or citizens to say, look, a decision like this one has been taken. This is how we plan to move forward, or we just forgot about any person who could have been affected by the mishaps that would have, because when crime happens, it affects families, it affects individuals.
Honorable Chair, I did say yesterday that when the dockets were removed from KZN, I was not informed. And as a result, I could not reach out to the clients, the victims of crime. And I believe that the members that were investigating those dockets, some of them that remained behind, did try to reach out to some of the complainants to inform them about the fact that the dockets were taken to Pretoria, therefore they don't know what is
just respectfully, General, what I want to check, it was not your decision. The person who took that decision, where I stand, my understanding is that the person could have thought about the impact that the decision will have. And the person should be able to say, because this decision is taken from national, as a provincial commissioner, we may want you, or we want to send a team to the province, where possible, to meet with the affected families and communicate our decision to them, but also explain to them how we are going to be moving forward, ensuring that there is justice.
Honorable Chair, that is the ideal situation. But because the intention to close the unit had got no business with the work of the team in KZN specific, the interest was to stop that which was happening in Gauteng. That's why the authors of the letter did not think to that extent. And they did not do anything about that. They called for the dockets to come to Pretoria for what good reason? And after that, they want to bring the dockets back to KZN. They still don't talk to the provincial commissioner throughout that whole process. Nothing in black and white that can be referred to the provincial commissioner being communicated with until such time that a divisional commissioner of detective make a phone call. It's the first time one gets to hear that the dockets are already in Pretoria. So the author of the letter's intention was not a noble one. The intention was not to improve the performance of the organization by shutting down the unnecessary teams, and so that you can make sure that you can focus on things you should be focusing on. But the intention was a criminal intent. That's why the negligence that they made. And that had an impact to the victims of crime. That had an impact on the administration of justice. It is that formed the basis of the criminal investigation we are busy with.
So as we meet here, those families may be watching us with high expectations that Parliament may say something about their cases.
We might not talk in details about the cases, Chair, but the family members indeed might be sitting and watching and hoping that this, what had happened back then when they were briefed about what had happened, there is going to be consequences as a result. One famous family that was always in the media is a family of one lady that was attacked allegedly by a lover, Nhlanhla, in the Eastern Cape in Tata. That docket was with this trust team. But it's part of the docket that was sent to Pretoria. For what good reason? You can't explain it. So, and the family was informed that, look, they took this docket and sent them to Pretoria. We can't tell you anything about the case. And the family was disturbed and they made noise about it. And that led into the Pretoria Gerald Spear's office visiting that family to tell them that, no, we're going to investigate your case, don't worry. It is the only family that was never attended to during the period the dockets were in Pretoria, because they made noise after they were briefed by the team that was originally investigating. That goes to show you the impact the removal of the dockets had. I saw the interviews recently from one of the media house with some of the family members that had lost a loved one. Where they were asking them about their feelings about these dockets. They were taken to Pretoria in a suspension of the investigation. And it was not a good story that came out from the family. And it is there available, and the media did a good job by doing those interviews. But it's one of the challenges, Honorable Chair, that that brings me here today to say the closure of the PKTT was ill-informed. Ill-advised that the minister received. It had a criminal intent to stop investigations that are happening in Gauteng. They missed the targets because they did not calculate who are exactly they are targeting. Had they knew exactly that the dockets they're looking for are sitting at this counterintelligence operation, they were not even going to write that letter. we wouldn't be here talking about the political killings testing. So that is a reality. That was a mistarget.
But that decision can be interpreted to mean that we are treating the ordinary person with contempt.
We are treating the ordinary person
with contempt.
In what sense?
Look, we are public representatives here.
Yes.
We are running government. There is a decision that is taken. That decision is not communicated to the affected parties. Can somebody understand it that way, that the ordinary person is treated with contempt?
Honorable Chair, I'm not so sure if I really follow what the Honorable Chair is saying in terms of treating the client and the victim with contempt. Yes, indeed, the client was deprived of an opportunity to be serviced in the manner they're supposed to be serviced by government, as it were, because of the intervention that happened, informed by that letter of the 31st of December. So I know it is unfair treatment that the family members of the deceased or the victims of crime experienced to date, and it is those family members and those victims that will hope for a redress coming out of this session to make them happy and give some closures on them.
Okay. No, it's fine, General. Thank you so much. I listen to honorable members when they have been asking questions, because our focus has been in the offices, and we have not brought to light the aspect of an ordinary person who may be suffering in silence and who is looking at all of us, whether General Mkhwanazi, whether the minister, whether Deputy Commissioner Sibia, ourselves as the institution of Parliament. South Africans who are suffering in silence. And we hear that there are the following personalities in the administration of the state who are taking these decisions which affect us very terribly. A decision is taken, nobody comes to explain the decision to us, to inform us that, look, this is how we will take it forward. You must not be worried. We are aware that you have lost your loved ones, but we will deal with your matter in this way. I think it's a lesson that all of us must learn when we live here, General, that the decisions of the authorities can either positively or negatively affect the citizens. Senior Counsel, would there be issues that would emanate from the questions that honorable members would have asked, and you want to clarify them with?
Thank you, Chairperson. It's late, and I've still got a whole day of questioning for the National Commissioner tomorrow. May I suggest or propose this, that I put my questions, because I'm going to be at least an hour. Can I suggest that I put my questions in writing, which will also be copied to the members, and once General Mkhwanazi responds in writing, that will be placed on record, already into the record, if it's in order with the honourable members and with you, Chair, and then we can conclude the oral hearings for today.
A problem if you want to ask the questions now. No. Look, honorable members, I'm just saying that on a lighter moment, please. What I wanted to say is that we must reach a stage where we must thank the general. I mean, he has been sitting here from 8:30 when we came back from dinner. This was the 5th round, Honorable Malem. So, so I think that we did justice to today's work. We must thank the general for the time that he spent with us for the last 2 days, but also thank the honorable members for the questions that you asked. I think they will help us to determine how we move forward as a committee in doing our work. And before I give you a chance, I will also want to put it before you that I'm thinking that we should start at 11 o'clock tomorrow. It has been a grueling 2 days. You can imagine when you start at 9 o'clock and finish at 12 midnight every day, 2 days in a row. So I want to request you, honorable members, to agree that we start at 11 tomorrow. And the proceedings will be at M46. Yes. Yeah. The proceedings will be at M46 tomorrow. This venue is not available tomorrow. Yeah. Honorable James.
Sorry, Chair. I just want to ask, are we going to be sitting until midnight every night? Because I was sitting there just now and I cannot help notice that there were more than 6 members closing their eyes this side while Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi was dropping bombs. We can't keep our eyes open. So I just want to ask, is this how it's going to go throughout? Because obviously one can only concentrate for as long. So I just want to, so that I can prepare myself mentally, because at a certain point you sort of switch off because you are drained. It's 2 nights in a row. It's 15-hour days. So I just maybe want clarity from you, Chair, so that we can prepare ourselves if this is going to be the precedence.
What is it that you are checking?
Excuse me, Chair?
I can't hear what you are saying.
You can't hear what I'm saying?
I hear you saying that there were about 6 members who were slumbering.
Yeah, because members are tired, Chair. It's been a long day.
Yes, no, that is why I want to close the meeting. And the last thing that
never mind, Chair. You're missing.
Well, Honorable Malem.
I'm asking, Chairperson, I'm asking if this is going to be the pattern so that we can prepare and know, how to, that we must prepare ourselves for 15-hour days.
It is pay as you go.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Chair, we're doing so well. We are here to work. And I've never seen any member slumbering or we complain to any member. We never complained anything. We're here to work. So to show you are considerate, you are saying because for the past 2 days we've been finishing late. Let's start a bit late tomorrow and then let's push. We're here to work. We've been blamed for doing nothing. At least let's be on top and do something when we're on top.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Honorable Nhlanhla.
Thank you very much, Chair. We are in full support. Of course, it has been some robust 2 days, and I think 11 o'clock will be fine. Because only tomorrow we're only dealing with the evidence leader-leading question with the National Commissioner. We are going to come on Friday, and Chair, I want to echo the sentiments of Honorable Malem.
I want to thank you for the first round. And also conclude with Honorable Cameron for the round.
No, Chair.
5 rounds in one
We're
day.
done with that.
It's a great
We
achievement for
are still fresh, Chair. We are still fresh. We're not slumbering. Thank you.
I forgot to say the meeting is adjourned. Let me release our witness from the Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Thank you so much. You are released.
Thank you. See.